From now until Wednesday, Code Espresso gets you 30% off your entire order at gfuel.com. So whether or not you want to check out a new flavor, grab a restock, or just want to try it out for the first time, be sure to use Code Espresso for 30% off your order. Link in the description below. It's a Tuesday, and it's an update day at that, with an update for Black Ops 4 that might not be exactly what people had hoped for, but an update no less. So today, we're going to break down all of that and let you know everything that changed and what's still on the horizon. Now, probably the biggest thing here outside of the update itself was that we actually did today as well get a teaser for Operation Apocalypse Z. It was confirmed, and we got that first teaser, which you'll see on screen right now, and it said that the undead will be taking over MPs, zombies, and Blackout, this coming to PlayStation 4 this upcoming Tuesday. Not today, but next week, and then a week following for PC as well as Xbox One. We're going to be breaking it down and going in depth with what it means and what will likely be coming, but for the sake of pure information on the update, as always on Tuesdays, we're going to focus on the now in this video with today's update, and we'll go more in depth with a look at Apocalypse Z in a much fuller manner as of tomorrow. So if you're interested, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not, as 63% of you are, to stay up to date with all that kind of stuff, and of course with the other coming information and gameplay of Apocalypse Z for Black Ops 4 over the course of the next week, and as we round into the next operation even further after that. So that said, we're going to jump right into the changes here made today. First thing, when you boot up Black Ops 4, you'll end up seeing you have a different main menu, as you always do with this kind of stuff with playlist refreshes. We have MP, World League, and Blackout, as well as zombies. The only two of those being changed, though, are the featured game modes for MP and Blackout. You have Endurance, Chaos, Mosh Pit, and Hot Pursuit on that main menu. But jumping over to MP, we end up seeing that we end up having the featured game modes of Endurance, Chaos, Mosh Pit as seen on that main menu, which will include Kill Confirmed, TDM, Domination, and Hardpoint on all of the maps available, DLC or not. This is something for those that have not jumped on for an Endurance, Chaos, Mosh Pit game yet and experienced this at all in the game of Black Ops 4. It's double the score limits of each of those modes. So Domination is 400 with a half of 200, Hardpoint is 500 points, and so on and so forth. You may come into a lot of full parties here at this one, so bear that in mind. I remember from the previous times that these have been around, that's been something that's been a relevant issue with that. So if you're a solo player like myself, you might have a tougher time, but it is something you jump on and still play around and have a good time with. Outside of that, the only other things that in terms of game modes were changed were a little bit of the Blackout side as well. We end up seeing that we have for this week the featured playlist of Hot Pursuit, Hardcore Duos, Solos, Duos, and Quads. Now, those three last ones are of course the standard, but Hot Pursuit actually got a little bit of a change. We're added a fifth circle to the game mode where players can continue respawning until the final circle, and apparently it's pure chaos. I haven't been able to jump on and grab some footage of that just yet for myself, but my good buddy Lazy ended up posting his experience over on Twitter where there were 72 players left in that final zone, and that is absolutely insane. Alcatraz is one thing, but 72 players in the final circle is still pretty small, and a ton of players for that, even on the larger standard Blackout map. So I'll have to jump in and try that out for myself because I love the chaos of that, even though it can be frustrating if you get picked off immediately, but that's something that changed as well with Hot Pursuit. Hardcore Duos is exactly what you guys remember from the regular hardcore game mode that was debuted back in, I believe, the springtime, if I'm not mistaken. But this is something where you don't have any HUD, you don't have a counter, you don't have a map, you don't have even a quick selection where you can end up changing your heals or your equipment. You have to hit the start button to end up going into this and then activating all of that. So it is something that's a little bit more of a different way to play Blackout, and of course there's going to be a lot more campers. There's no armor. The only healing you have are those med kits that heal up to 50, so it definitely gets to be a different play style, a different meta, and of course you have to adjust accordingly. The biggest thing that I always had a problem with was the zone with this, because it ends up sending out flares at the center of the zone. So because there is no mini map or there is no map at all, you can't really tell where that's going to be if you're nowhere near it. I know there was one scenario, which we'll probably see in the gameplay, that I recorded that, where we were out at Estates, or Stronghold more specifically, and we were so far away that we didn't even hear the flares go off. So that was something we had no idea, and we had to run the entire time, and eventually we ended up dying as a result. So that's something to bear in mind. But Hardcore Duos is back for you and your duos partner, not quads this time, so it's a little bit of a shake up here for what we already saw, but it's something that not my cup of tea, but I know a lot of people really did enjoy it whenever it was around beforehand. So check that out if you guys have not done so already. As for the shop refreshes, there's nothing new here. Truthfully, I really wasn't expecting anything new. It's the end of the entire operation, not just Days of Summer. So in that regard, we're on the same path as we were with Grand Heist and even the first half of Spectre Rising, where it's not really anything new. It's getting us ready for it next week, where there's going to be a huge dump of new content across all the modes. So what we have added to the shop though this week is the Fighter Ace bundle. That was the Fighter Ace Master Mastercraft for the ABR from Absolute Zero's tiers. This comes with 8 crates, and personally, I don't know the price of this. Unfortunately, my guess is at least 1,000 COD points for this. I don't know exactly because I had this from the tiers that we had in Absolute Zero. Then we end up seeing the Getaway outfit from Grand Heist. That's 800 COD points for the Ruin skin there. And the Stash Crash uniform is the Tom Selleck Magnum PI lookalike from Grand Heist as well for 800 COD points as that special order. It's 5 tiers, an emote, tag, calling card, sticker, and the uniform for those 5 tiers respectively, but that's the shop refreshes. Now, in the black market outside of that is the biggest part here out of this update that players were probably looking forward to, and what was actually the catalyst for this entire last week event, that being the 4th of July special event that's going to last until the Operation Refresh on PlayStation 4 come next week and is on all platforms right now, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. This is 15 tiers. It lasts, again, that 7 days for all platforms, and from what I've heard, I think the PC version actually may be bugged from tweets that some of you guys sent me, where it's a shorter stream and there's no Ultra Bribe at the end, but I think it's bugged. So stay tuned for that fix. I can't imagine that it's anything that was intentional, but that's something that I've heard preliminarily out of what we saw showcased already today by the time of recording this. But the event itself was that biggest part about this update, and honestly, it's nothing too great. Kind of underwhelming because we ended up getting reserve cases for every other tier, not even every single tier, and we have no cosmetics or anything actually themed around the 4th of July, which is actually pretty weird to me in my opinion. I kind of thought that given that we saw the image that you see on that 4th of July special event preview and the countdown here for how many tiers you've done out of that, we ended up seeing that image in the files showcased out of the most recent data mined items, and I thought maybe we'd end up seeing something that is a different death effect even given here for that at the very bare minimum, but all we again have are those tiers with reserves at every other tier, and ultimately at that 15th tier, you end up having the Ultra Weapon Bribe. Now that Ultra Weapon Bribe will grant you one ranged weapon that you do not have. It differs from the regular weapon bribe we've seen already introduced, whereas it doesn't offer any Mark II weapons unless you have all 4. So if you have the Locust, Peacekeeper, S6 Stingray, or Ballistic Knife, and you decide to get that and then open it, it can then give you a Mark II weapon. But talking about the event as a whole, truthfully, I know this might not be everybody's favorite take on this here, and it may not be what everybody wants to hear, but thinking about it further, I'm honestly not surprised. Not in the sense that I feel like I've been let down so much that I wasn't expecting anything in the first place, though that still partially ties into it. We also didn't have any new items that were data mined as of the 1.19 update that we saw last week, and we're at the end of Days of Summer and pretty much have utilized everything that we've seen data mined from the game files up until this point. We also didn't have anything outside of the Ultra Weapon Bribe ever detailed to us by Treyarch. So the thing I think it comes down to is that I think it was poorly executed, and based off that limited nature, we ourselves either inadvertently or out of the buzz created by Treyarch's wording that was rather ambiguous, got a bit more excited than we maybe should have. I certainly don't think that it should be, firstly, 15 tiers with holes in the rewards. Make it say 10 tiers and reserves with an Ultra Weapon Bribe at that 10th tier. 15 is definitely doable, but maybe for the weekend warriors alone, maybe a little bit tougher. 10 days is definitely way more reasonable, and 10 in 7 days, of course, is something that is a little bit more on par with daily tier skips and playing just a little bit if you only have a little bit of time. Additionally, I think that the lack thereof of any events like this beforehand are kind of what is the biggest downfall here of this. Because these secondary limited streams are so, well, just that limited, we come to expect that there is something a bit more awe-inspiring out of them than when, say, something like this comes around. The Barbarians event took everyone by surprise and was absolutely insane when you think about it. Was, I think, 25 tiers, 24 of which were pretty cool stuff. We got a Mastercraft out of that, I think, or a reactive camo, one of those two, and then we also got a weapon out of it. This one, by comparison, is insanely disappointing. If you were to have even something just like this where it added secondary reserves and an Ultra Weapon Bribe in a stream like this once a month, once every 3 weeks, as opposed to every 70 plus days, not only one would I think the community expectations be leveled out for this kind of stuff and you could drop this a little bit more regularly and not have any outrage with it, but I also think that it'd be a more rewarding way for players to get new things organically. I mean, we have one Ultra Weapon Bribe now with this, but think of having the option for 2 bribes each operation. That's 2 of the 4 weapons guaranteed for simply just playing the game, but it is something where you have to put the time into it, where you have to end up committing to playing the game that much and grinding it out. That's 2 of those 4 weapons guaranteed simply by playing, and that's not too much from a business perspective, I think, where you give things for free, and I think that it's more so an even balance for what we see and a bit more fair. Maybe not entirely fair, but a bit more than we see now. But anyways, this event was a big focal point, and while admittedly I didn't have any real expectations, it did come as a bit of a shock to me whenever I ended up seeing it switch over, and all there were reserves in that bribe. But at the same time, it's also something to tide us over and keep us working until the next operation. So, truth be told, I know that it might seem like I'm defending it. I'm truthfully just entirely impartial. I don't care at this point. I knew the end result would be that ultra weapon bribe, but what was there beforehand, I really had zero expectations for it. So, it is what it is. And then tomorrow, like we discussed yesterday, in the things to look out for, we'll see the introduction of another ultra weapon bribe via the shop. This one coming with a Jellyfish 0 outfit plus 10 reserve crates. So 30 items, not dupe protected sadly, but on top of that, including the weapon bribe. Now, here's the part I'm not too ecstatic about. I'm all for the option of getting more ultra weapon bribes, but the price is what's gonna really hurt me here and really gonna be concerning. We have 10 crates, at least $10 there in my opinion, a uniform, probably around 5 if given comparable to what we've seen beforehand, and then the bribe is at least gonna be $10, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's $15 or more. So you're looking at another $20 to $30 bundle added in tomorrow in the shop. That's a yikes from me, dog. But anyways, the bribe discussion out of the way and how we see these introduced. If you end up getting the bribe for this or going for them, firstly, honestly, I'd one suggesting grinding out the tiers. Even if you do have that disposable income that you don't really care and you usually buy those tiers to get that first thing and right out of the gate, I'd grind it out because realistically, there's not really all that much worthwhile here. Plus, we also don't know if they will act like they did in reserve cases, which is also another big thing. Because maybe at the very beginning of the next operation, you can get one of the new weapons. At the beginning of Spectre Rising, we had this scenario where all reserves earned before Spectre Rising only granted you items from Grand Heist. So unless you had all those reserves at the start of Operation Spectre Rising, you still only got those. This could work in the same fashion where we still only get the Peacekeeper, S6 Stingray, Ballistic Knife, and Locust, but they may not, in which you'll also have a shot at getting those new weapons that we discussed beforehand that will be introduced with the next operation, Apocalypse Z. And even if not, again, even if you do end up only getting those weapons from beforehand, well, you've waited 4 or 5 weeks so far without that weapon you may want, so what's waiting another 7 days before opening it if there is that chance you get another new weapon you may want at that time right off the bat. But ultimately, that is what we saw added with the update here today for the 4th of July event week and what is going to round us into the final week of Days of Summer before we jump into Operation Apocalypse Z as of next Tuesday on PlayStation 4. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I know there's probably going to be a lot of disappointment here with the 4th of July event, and that is totally cool. I totally understand that. I definitely get where everybody is coming from, and I honestly wish there was more here with this, but let me know your thoughts. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, MP, Blackout, Zombies. We got you covered the best of updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff, and of course, a ton of information probably coming here on Apocalypse Z as the week rolls on. So hit that subscribe button if you're interested in any of that. But if you guys also want to get connected with me here a little bit further, Twitter and Instagram are the best places to do so. Those links are down there in the description below. But other than that, out of the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.